Hello and welcome to Movie Night Mates, a real-time film commentary podcast. My name is Dan, and I'm joined, as I am almost every week, by my lovely friends, fellow movie enjoyers, co-hosts, and honestly, there's really no funny joke I can make about this movie because it's a precarious situation. So I'll just let them introduce themselves. It's Avery and Jess. I realized that neither of you knew which one to go first, so I'll just say it. Say hello, guys. How you doing?
Hello.
Hi.
Good.
Are you
Hi.
okay?
Yeah.
Hashtag I am not okay.
I am not okay.
Today we are reviewing the streaming movie Not Okay. So if you are listening to this right now and you have access to Hulu, even for free, then you can watch this movie right now. So go do it and then come back and listen to our review because we're going to get right into spoilers. Immediate reactions to this movie from non-spoilery. How are we feeling about it? Thumbs up, thumbs down, worth checking out for free.
I didn't know literally anything going into it, literally other than the fact that Dylan O'Brien was in it. So I think having known nothing and then watched it, I think I liked it more than I thought I would based on like the first 10 minutes of viewing it. But like, we'll get into it. But overall, it was like, all right. It was okay.
Yeah, I remember when we were talking about doing this, you were like, well, we can either do a thriller or something else. And I was like, do you think this movie is a thriller? Like, it's not spooky.
I don't know what I saw that made me think it was. Honestly, I have no idea. So I was probably thinking of something else. Let's be real. So
Avery, I could see Piper in the background. She doesn't need to crawl. We're recording this visually.
I know she's trying not to make a sound.
It's okay. No, I'm just saying she can stand up. There's no visual component to this at all.
Piper, you can stand up. It's okay.
I'm leaving that in. It's funny.
We are not okay. I didn't know that. I didn't know much about it either. I knew kind of like, I think I read, like on Hulu when it came up, or like maybe like on Instagram or something, but I didn't know, like I knew the scene, like it was unexpected how it all went down. I was not expecting it to play out the way it did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Personally, I would say, especially since it's free streaming, definitely worth a watch.
Yeah.
My 2-second review is that, it doesn't do anything particularly new, but I think that the direction and cast work really, really well for this movie, like in its favor a lot. I feel like with a different cast or different director or both or either or whatever, or even a different script, it could have not been good. But, I think with the messages that it wants to convey, it very much wears that stuff on its sleeve.
yeah.
Like the themes are pretty obvious and nothing crazy revolutionary about like social media being bad and people being, really hungry for fame. But yeah, so let's jump into the movie. It's directed and written by Quinn Shepard, stars Zoey Deutch, Dylan O'Brien, Nadia Alexander, and Mia Isaac, and a few other people here and there. This movie was very much marketed on Zoey Deutch and Dylan O'Brien. Zoey Deutch is, we have to acknowledge, a nepotism baby. A pretty good one, I would say, in terms of her actual talent. I think that,
Who is she related to?
She is the daughter of Leah Thompson and Howard Deutch, who is a director. And Leah Thompson, of course, was in, Back to the Future and all that stuff. She plays Marty's mom / love interest in the first movie.
MILF.
Yeah, I love Leah Thompson, so I'm a little biased, but I do like her quite a good bit. And
Sorry.
is that copyrighted music? Avery, you're all over the place, man.
Listen, we are not okay. I told them.
know.
I told them.
Yeah, I gotcha.
I'll kill him.
I gotcha.
I'm kidding.
No, it's no problem. It's funny. So, jumping into the story. By the way, on Hulu, I don't have Hulu like premium, the no ads one, so I had to sit through a 1.5-minute ad for that movie,
really?
Easter Sunday. I don't know if you guys got an ad for that one too. It's a movie set on Easter Sunday that's coming out like next week, which is
so fitting.
Yeah, what?
And it's like, it's one of those movies where it's like, didn't know they made movies like that anymore with that kind of like vibe to it. Oh. It looks very much like a 2000s comedy, and it's just very out of place. Yeah, so let's jump into it. For the 5th time I've said that. We start with content.
Actually. Now let's get into it.
Let's just jump into it. We got a content warning in the beginning, which I thought was funny. Yeah. It was like about, warning about violence and talks about traumatic situations, and also warns of an unlikable female protagonist, which I thought was very funny. I tipped my little fedora to that one. It made me giggle. I watched this with Jess, by the way, who really liked the movie. So, another review. We start in media res with our main character, Danni Sanders, kind of just scrolling through a ton of memes about herself and how terrible she is, and she's giving a monologue about, how people will do anything to be known and loved, and then she breaks the fourth wall and says, "Be careful what you fucking wish for," directly at the camera. And then we get to 2 months earlier. She is at an article review with her boss, who talks about how lazy and kind of untalented she is, and how her article kind of makes no sense. She wrote about how sad she is all the time.
Missing 9/11.
Yeah, missing
like if you agree
for 9/11.
Like if you agree.
I did not miss 9/11. I know you might have, Avery. I don't know if you remember it. You're a youngin', but I feel like Jess and I are like kind of the youngest people who could have remembered it at the time.
I thought she meant like missing it, like missing it, like, oh, I miss 9/11. And then I was like, wait, what?
Yeah, I guess because her
not
family
like she
lived
didn't
in New
see it or
York, of
something,
course. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So I just assumed that it was like she wasn't in the U.S. at the time.
Yeah.
But she was on a cruise, so having like a really good time and that kind of stuff. Because she comes from an affluent family, which you see later on as well, like very rich. And there is a Lena Dunham diss in this scene.
Yes.
Which I always appreciate. Anytime someone disses
good.
Lena Dunham, that's great. I'm glad that people are officially putting that in movies now, that Lena Dunham sucks ass. And I think that's a good thing. Let's tear her down a little bit. Bring her down a few pegs.
Yeah.
So she leaves her boss's office, and we see Dylan O'Brien's character, Colin, get introduced in a vape cloud coming out of the elevator or out of his office. He is a coworker that she has a crush on. He's a kind of famous vlogger for this company she works for called Depravity, which is kind of like, I guess, a BuzzFeed Reductress parody site. It's just a parody of those kinds of...
Reductress is so good, though.
I know.
Millennial run, very, liberal, or at least, virtue signaling. I don't know if they're actually, hold these standards, or if they just know that it gets attention and clicks. We don't know. And... yeah, so Danni is a photo editor for them, not a writer, which she would really like to be. And her hair, she has the same hair the whole time. I thought that she dyed it when she got famous based on the trailers, but she just has this... she looks like an evil, mean rogue from the X-Men the whole time. And please jump in with these things, because I don't really keep up with style.
She has the same phone case as Piper.
Yeah, I noted
the Wild
times.
Femme or something.
Yeah,
It's something.
I noted 20 times. I want all of these outfits.
I was looking at Five Below of the phone thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, what if I got one?
No,
it's too fun for me.
There are like 3 influencers I follow that have the phone charm, and I'm like, I kind of want one. I don't know. And then it was in this movie, and I'm like, that means it's cool. Like, it's in a movie.
Yeah,
so
and those
it's
like
cool
plastic
right
rings that you see at like H&M and shit.
Yeah. I'm like, I want all of this.
But that was my question is, I want you to point out when she's doing stuff that's outdated. Because I know people are already saying the movie's out, like, wow, this was like outdated when the movie was shot. And that's kind of the point. So is it that cool? Oh my god, cat on the mic. We got a cat in the background.
I tuned him out. I didn't even know.
He didn't even know.
Yeah, can you take care of that?
I did think like right off the bat, like all of the characters, pretty much every character in this movie is like a complete like caricature of people that are like that too. So like obviously I feel like we see it a lot in like TV shows or movies or whatever, but the like, you know, New York, young, office, whatever, like everyone was dressed up really well, and a lot of the people, I did like their outfits a lot, but like Harper, you're introduced to Harper too, like in passing, and like her outfit is this like 2012 fucking black, like My Chemical Romance vest, and I was like, what the fuck are you wearing? No one wears that anymore. So like there were some things in it that I was like, this is just like a caricature of like everyone that's like this, obviously including the main character, but like everyone that worked in the office, like Dylan O'Brien's character is like insane.
Natty fucking smoke.
Yeah.
I can get to Dylan O'Brien's character later because I have a good comparison for him. But yeah, she's basically dressed like Olivia Rodrigo.
Yeah.
Like on her cover albums and stuff like that. But like she repeats outfits a lot. In this movie, like she wears like that checkered thing, I think like 3 different times. She has the same hairstyle, and it's like these kinds of things you wouldn't really see someone with that hairstyle anymore. That was like a very 2020 kind of thing to do, and this movie I think was even made like last summer, 2021. So it's like having her be outdated and all that is a pretty good way of kind of cluing us into the fact that she's out of touch and she doesn't really have her own personality or anything.
I think it's also
like she just kind of globs it from other people.
I was just gonna say,
and you see that really towards the end.
Yeah,
of the movie,
like
but
it's also too like you can like follow someone and then see like their you know, their style or whatever, and then until you like get the clothes or the accessories to replicate that, and then you wear it, like technically it's already out of style too. So it's also like clearly she's just taking her own.
It's very fast fashion kind of stuff.
Exactly. Living in Bushwick is out of style too.
Yeah, I keep seeing TikToks about like my Bushwick roommates and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that you joined for this one because I really don't know. Like, I know the general vibes of the boroughs in New York, but I do not know their specific neighborhoods and like the reputations that they have. So please fill me in.
Yeah, I mean, she was a few stops away. Yeah, she got off at Gates Ave, and that's on the J. And she made a joke like, the J part of Bushwick, not the L part of it, because the L train part of Bushwick is like gentrified, very hip, up and coming, and the J is around where I was, and it's like not so much yet. It's right on the border of like Bed-Stuy and Bushwick, and she was living there. Still, her apartment was probably like 3,000. Like her apartment was still nice.
It seems like she probably saw Bushwick was trendy, asked her parents to get her an apartment there, but didn't really look into it, and ended up
didn't
in
know
a part
where.
that she didn't like.
Which part.
Yeah,
but yeah, she would. I used to live off of the J, and it was like a few stops. I think like 1 or 2. So I think I've only been off of that stop like once, so I didn't recognize anything. But it was like a good point. I'll let you keep going, but like how the neighborhood was changing, like
No, it's helpful.
There was a good point because there's like so many new things, so many apartment buildings coming up, and like all these like weird like new stores that are like mostly white owned popping up.
Of course.
Yeah.
So we now enter part 1 of the movie. I like that it was segmented into
I
chapters.
loved the title cards.
Yeah, they were good.
They were well utilized. Yeah. And so this is part 1. Why doesn't anybody like me? And we're introduced to her coworker Harper / rival here in a elevator that she gets into with Harper and another coworker. And they're talking about going to queer bowling, and Harper's like, wow, I'd like to go to that, and they're like, well, you're not.
Yes, Queen
like,
Slay.
Yes, Queen Slay.
I was like, oh god.
Oh god.
Yeah, and like her employment of slang. I think Zoey Deutch especially did a great job in this movie.
I think that's her type.
As I said, I think the casting,
a clueless straight girl, like
the casting was really, really solid for this. I think with a different casting or even just a different lead actress, it could have fallen flat.
And her being like, "Oh, I made out with someone at an NYU party." It's like, "Oh my god, like
so
you're gay? Are you attracted to me?" Yeah, like, "Oh my god, like shut the fuck up."
Exactly. I mean, and her coworker says, "Yeah, being a minority is great."
Yeah,
and she like legitimately agrees with him.
She's like, right.
And so then we see her on the train home, and she's taking up like 3 different seats. She's like has her bag next to her. She has her feet up on another,
those people...
and there are people standing around her. So she's very inconsiderate of others' stuff. And I had to put here, that's not how Lexapro works. She like is feeling bad, and then she like pops 3 extra Lexapro. I'm like, that'll take like 3 weeks to kick in. That's the point. Of like Lexapro isn't Xanax. It's not like an immediate or like a Valium or something.
Well, clearly she's not in her right mind, so she probably is like, okay, this should do the trick.
Yeah.
So she's depressed, pretty depressed.
Who
which
isn't?
will come back later.
True.
Yeah. And
doesn't mean you could take up 3 seats.
We get a pretty obvious comparison with a homeless person living right next to a new boutique matcha store.
Yeah.
She sees Colin there, and he lights up his scorpion joint.
Dude, he's like, other side.
Bro. It takes him like 30 seconds to do
with a torch. The fucking torch.
It was such a long shot. Like... and then he flips it and he's like, gotta get the other side. And then it's another 30 seconds.
I wish Dylan O'Brien was in more of this movie, but every scene he was in, he was just spot on.
He was so good.
A great actor.
I want to be him for Halloween. I already got the hair down.
Hell yeah.
Colin? Yeah.
Hell yeah, dude.
You should check out the movie Love and Monsters. It came out, I think, in 2020. Like, it's one of the only movies that year. Really, really solid. It has him in it, and it really flew under the radar. So, you guys and anybody listening, check out Love and Monsters. And we see that, you know, he has some fans, and they're like, we love your, like, smoking videos and stuff. For a second, I thought this was going to come back later, and people, like, only ironically liked him, but I guess not. People do like him. And he's a pretty good example off the bat of exactly what Danny does later, in that his whole image, his fame, everything stems from also stealing other people's pain and culture and everything and appropriating their language. Mm-hmm. He almost exclusively talks in AAVE. Yeah. And like later gets pointed out that he's from Maine.
Yeah. That scene was that I was like,
okay,
cackling.
Harper.
He's like, okay,
like, we all know things about each other. And yeah, so I think he's a good foil, not really foil, I guess, but just another example of exactly what Danny does, but he gets away with it because he's a good-looking white dude, and no one will call him on that. So, good example of that there. She then lies to Colin about being invited to a Paris writers' retreat, and that gets his attention. He's like, okay, cool, like, send me pics. He does not say it like that, but I won't do the voice.
No,
and
do
we
it.
now get to...
No, do
good.
it.
You can try it if you want.
Don't be shy. Do it.
We now get to part 2, the lie. So Danny actually does look at going to Paris, sees that the flights are too expensive, thinks about asking her parents, consults her guinea pig, who's named Guinea Weasley, which I think is
love that
just
little guinea pig.
I love the guinea pig, and it also has the streaks on him. And I do like that it's named after a Harry Potter character, which is very millennial. Oh, yeah. Or Zillenial, as the character is supposed to be, like us, like Jess and me. Yeah. Avery's the true Gen Z here. Avery can call us on our shit. But Guinea Weasley steps on her keyboard and opens Photoshop. So that gives Danny the idea to do like a whole montage of basically creating this fake trip of her around her apartment and in Bushwick, and then photoshopping stuff to make it look like she's actually in Paris. She tells everybody she's going on this retreat. And it was here that I realized that I did really like the camera work and color grading so far, and like the lighting of the movie. I thought it was really fun and creative and just colorful. It was always fun to look at bright colors. But I like the utilization of that, and especially the set design, which comes back later, but mostly her apartment the office she works in, and then her room at her parents' house, I felt were all really good, like, kind of encapsulations of the characters that inhabit that space. Like, her apartment, it never looks like she fully moved in. She has just, like, books stacked on the side. Never got, like, a book.
Yeah. Complete slob.
It's complete slobbery. She has, like, trash, just open food containers everywhere, like junk food all over the place.
Whoa, in New York with the roaches? Oh, she's dumb for that one.
She also, like, I noticed in the background in the closet has an open, an open suitcase that just still has clothes in it, and it's like I just really like the detail. And like in her childhood room, she has like all the Harry Potter books on her side, and like the lights coming down. It was just very much accurate representations. I feel like those things can be really overlooked, and it helps kind of build the world, and also is a good kind of symbol metaphor for the fact that she has such like a tailored and manicured public image that she puts forward, and then at home is just like completely not that at all. So her posts start to work. Colin follows her. She's getting more attention, and then she wakes up and finds out that terrorists have attacked Paris, specifically the Arc de Triomphe, where she posted a picture of herself 5 minutes before the attack actually happened. So her phone is blowing up, and we go into part 3. Oh, fuck. She immediately tries to tell her mom the truth, but like kind of realizes after Colin reaches out to see if she's okay with like a one-word thing, like, hope you're doing okay, which not even like actual compassion or attention.
It's so frustrating to watch her spiral because of this, just because of one guy that slid into her DMs.
Doing the bare minimum.
Come on, not even less than, like...
He didn't even spell okay the full way. He said O and K, like, bro. Come on, girl.
Yeah, like, you
he
are
can
so
do better.
Down bad, you don't have to go through all this.
No bitches. No Collins. So she then posts like a story like, I'm doing okay, everybody, all that, like completely doubles down on the fact that not only was she in Paris, but she was present during the attacks. She sneaks into a group of people coming home from Paris at the airport and gets photographed meeting up with her parents there in a red beret.
Her like going around the like pillar to then meet up with all the people getting off the plane.
Her mom is Miss Honey from Matilda, so I love that.
MILF.
Oh!
I didn't even know she looked familiar, but she's mean.
I was thinking the same thing. That's so funny.
Yeah, it's
she looks kind of the same.
Embeth Davis.
Like her hair, she does look really familiar, but she was so mean.
Yeah, so
she didn't have glasses too. Ooh, the glasses really. Ugh.
Not only is she Miss Honey, but she's also Sheila in Army of Darkness, another show that we covered on this, another movie we covered on this show. So, her parents are like wealthy. They live in a nice, spacious apartment in New York, like big pillars, huge windows, all that stuff. A really nice living room. So it kind of clues us into the fact that Danni maybe has not had to work for a lot of what she has in her life. Especially considering like how her parents still dote on her. Her dad is like an inconsolable mess the whole time,
that guy,
just crying about her.
That actor's in Man in the High Castle, which is like such a serious show.
Yes,
so
oh my
so
god,
funny.
He looked
I had
so
to look
familiar.
it up because I was like, I know this guy. But then it was so funny. His entire intro scene to like him as a character is just him like blubbering and like crying and stuff. Meanwhile, in Man in the High Castle, like everyone in that show is so serious the entire time. It was so funny.
Oh my god, thank you for
I was gonna watch that show.
Oh no. It got real bad.
It got bad.
I forced myself through it, but don't ever do that to yourself.
Yeah.
Okay.
Unfortunate.
I'll just play Wolfenstein.
Because it was a good
instead.
concept in theory.
Yeah, the first season was good.
Yeah.
That was it.
And
maybe
a lot
second
of the
season.
beats so far in the movie started to remind me of, and I'm sure you guys have this in your notes or your thoughts. I was like, she's like Dear Evan Hansen, but at least like the movie and story admits that she sucks and is not someone you should like want to identify with or feel compassion
Well, I mean, it reminded
for.
me of Dear Evan Hansen when her parents were like not letting her explain, and it was kind of
that's
like,
what I mean.
yeah, like the other family being like, "Oh, did you do this with him and this and this?" And he was like, "Oh, yeah." So he just like they just gave it all to him.
Except, yeah, a big, and I know I've seen some comparisons too since then, like on TikTok and whatnot. I think the big difference is that this movie does not attempt to excuse or redeem her. They even
I like that.
Yeah.
present the same excuses for Dear Evan Hansen, like, oh, she's depressed and doesn't have any friends and lonely and anxious and stuff, and, you know, is suddenly getting attention and all that goodness. But yeah, in this one, it's not like we have to be, oh, poor Danny.
Yeah.
I just like that a lot. So she is now getting more attention from her parents. You know, her dad just gives her money. Her mom brings her like cocoa and makes sure that she's okay in bed, and she sleeps at her old room. People on Instagram are noticing her posts and her stories and reaching out. Her phone's like always blowing up with DMs and texts and stuff like that. And then she gets her first kind of nightmare about the attack. Throughout the movie, from here on out, she sees what they believe is what the bomber looked like, who attacked Paris. And she will just like see him randomly on the train and in spaces. And there's also, I'm not sure when it starts, but there is a French countdown that kind of happens in whispers through different scenes, kind of starting at 10 and going down to 1 until later in the movie, and it starts around this point.
Yeah.
I thought that was a cool like countdown to disaster type thing. It,
Yeah.
like, kept you track of like how close are we to like, because obviously it was to when everything goes down, but
Precisely. We're now at part 4, What I Saw That Day. Jess pointed out to me that she is wearing outdated rings at this point.
Yeah.
Jess was like, I wore those kinds of rings in like middle school. I didn't know they were ever back, if they are actually back. She would get
those
like the big
plastic
bubbly,
ones? The big, like,
yeah,
bubbly
Yeah, I
plastic
see them
ones.
at H&M. Like they're popular.
But do you see people
it's
wearing
like the
them?
70s.
Yeah.
Like the 70s aesthetic is back now.
Yeah,
Or
it was
we're
like
just
the
has every
80s last
aesthetic.
year,
Yeah.
and now it's like
And now
the
70s,
70s.
60s.
And I know Piper got the phone case before it was like really popular.
Yeah.
Before the movie?
Yeah, I mean I saw her have it. She got it like last year.
Yeah.
And now I see like everyone with it, like mostly like teenagers. But I haven't seen anyone wear the rings. I've seen some people, but it's not like, because it's like, it's not like you can get it fitted. Like, what do I have to, I don't know my ring size. The fuck? It's a plastic thing. Like, what?
Yeah.
I saw this idea that like the world, I think it was actually just like an Onion article or something, but it's actually kind of true that the world is just running out of nostalgia at this point.
Yeah.
That like we did 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s even, and it's like, when do we just start making our own original stuff? Because like,
We
yeah,
never do.
you're right.
We're
It's
living
like,
in a
it's sort of
capitalist
everything
society.
right now.
Yeah.
Style and movies. It's 70s, 80s, 90s, and millennium. Fashions, whatever, just kind of conglomerated everywhere. But anyway, so Danny is now getting, you know, high praise from her boss and colleagues who are like paying attention to her. Her boss is like, feel free to take any mental health days you need, and Danny like immediately gloms onto that. This is where Sarah Yarkin shows up as one of her coworkers. Sarah Yarkin, who was in Texas Chainsaw Massacre as one of the two sisters in that movie. And people hated her in that movie for no reason.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Jess? Yeah.
I hated her character. I didn't hate her.
Yeah, no. People like were attacking her too because they didn't like her character,
well,
which is not cool.
Stupid people on Twitter, I'm sure.
Character was well written. She was a shitty person. Colin then gives her a used joint, half-smoked joint, as like a...
He's so thoughtful.
So
He's such a
sweet.
douchebag.
He
And
is
in the
so
scene,
thoughtful.
he's like, we should hang out sometime or something. She's like, yeah. And he's like, yeah. So it's like the long... Yeah, it's really good. Dylan O'Brien plays a great douchebag in this movie. Now she's really starting to see the phantom bomber, we'll say, and she goes to a support group for inspiration because she decides to write a article on her experience, and quote unquote her boss says depravity would be honored to give you a platform, which I really thought was just a good line. But since she didn't actually experience it, she goes to these people to basically steal their stories. One person at the group, Charles, is a bombing survivor from the Ariana Grande concert back in 2019. And then she also meets Rowan, and Rowan kind of is introduced with this monologue about like the pain that she's felt. Rowan is a school shooting survivor. She talks about how everything kind of changes colors for you, and she actually can like speak on her experiences and counsel others and give them comfort, 'cause she's a good person. And Danni, kind of using the guise of the bombing, actually does start to open up, despite having like she does not like therapy. She doesn't think it works, but like she kind of is talking about how everything is gray for her and using this to deal with her depression. And she's not planning on coming back, but overhears that Rowan is famous because Charles asks her for an autograph or a picture to give to his kids. And so she asks Rowan to get coffee or something, and Rowan agrees to hang out with her sometime. And then she doesn't even pay any attention to Charles when he's like, you know what, I'm free though, I'll like go out with you and like we can talk about it.
Justice for Charles.
Yeah, Charles.
He was a sweetheart.
In terms of the power rankings of characters in this movie, I'll say Rowan, obviously at the top, Rowan's mom, then Harper, then Charles. Yeah. In terms of like actual moral people in the movie. So, I mean, Rowan, we see like this speech that she is giving or has given as Danni watches it online. She's very much clearly a stand-in for the Stoneman Douglas school shooting survivors who then became activists, David Hogg, X Gonzalez, all those kids who went through that stuff. And Rowan's basically giving the same kind of speeches that we saw a lot of them give right after the shooting as well. And now we go into part 5, which is titled Rowan. Danni meets up with her. They meet at the Arc in New York, which is basically like the same as the Arc de Triomphe in Paris. I don't know the history between those two. I don't know if one came before the other or if it was like they were built at the same time as like a connecting gateway or whatever.
There's one in Washington Square Park, and there's the one they were at was Grand Army Plaza. So I don't know which one of those came first, but there are more than one.
Okay. And it's modeled after the Arc de Triomphe, so that they leave because Rowan's like, oh, this might be tough for you. Danni does not have any friends. She is friendless. No friends. Because Rowan's like...
No friends.
Rowan's like... do you have anybody to open up to? Like your family members, friends? And Danny's like, well, I'm with you. Like, I'm seeing you, which is like really sad. Danny's a very sad character. And honestly, even though she sucks, you know, I felt more sorry for her than I did for Dear and Dear Evan Hansen. In terms of
God.
And Danni like talks about how she saw Rowan's poetry, her slam poetry, and she's like, it sounded just like Hamilton.
I like couldn't breathe when she said
Alexander Hamilton.
Fucking crying.
Yeah, I mean, so far in the movie, were you guys like laughing at the jokes? Did they hit for you most of the time?
Yeah, they did. But it was funny. I was gonna say this at like towards the end, but like so much of this movie is cringe because like she's obviously an unlikable character and is trying so hard to relate to everyone around her that everything that comes out of her mouth, you're just like, oh my god, shut up! Like, and I just can't deal with cringe. Like, it makes me physically nauseous. Like watching like cringe clips or whatever. Like I just can't do that. And this movie, like there were times that I had to like mute it for like a minute because it was like so.
No, I had to be like
cringy.
On my phone for a second.
Yeah, I had to like look away or something for a minute. But I still ended up liking the humor in it. So that's saying something. If I actually enjoyed cringe to a degree, that's saying something.
Good. I mean, she does the thing twice, and you see it in the trailer where she does like the fingers pointing at each other, like
God.
and like the hand over the
in the group she did that. She was
in
like,
the group,
I'm like, bro,
because she like can't open up about herself. Like she has to always deflect.
Reminds me of me and how I go like all the time.
But like I think she's a well written and deep character and a good character study for this movie.
Yeah.
As well. And so Danni asks Rowan for help with her article because of how good of a writer Rowan is with her Hamilton poetry. And And Rowan takes Danni to a rage space to quote unquote smash the numbness. And this is like really a good scene in that it kind of just shows how terrible Danni is, because when they both start to get into actually smashing all this stuff in this room, once they stop, Danni is like laughing and having fun, and Rowan is like crying and very upset and angry, and just kind of shows the actual trauma experienced, and that she's dealing with that. Rowan then says, "I am not okay," and like gives this speech about how it's okay to not be okay, and Danni basically rips that entirely for her article and says, compares her own article to the Black Lives Matter movement and the Me Too movement of like, let's start a movement of I am not okay. Harper is starting to get sus, and Danni
jealous bitch.
Then
she's just a bitter gay, just a bitter little gay wad.
Oh my god.
Sorry,
Jesus
I don't know what came over me. Who was that?
Oh my god, Ben Shapiro, I love your look.
You want me to flex for you?
Yeah, give me the gun show.
Oh my god, stop.
Whoa. Rowan also reposts Danni's article with the hashtag I am not okay, which helps blow it up a lot to the point where like celebrities are interacting with it and all that. We're now in part 6, I am not okay. Danni is bragging to the group therapy about how well her article is doing and how many people have reposted it and all that. Like, oh my god.
I was like, do you know where you are right now? Like, read the room.
Yes, because she has attention. She is like, people are paying attention to her finally. That's a good, yeah. And Rowan is like, well, like, eventually there will be people who don't like you, and warns her about backlash and trolls. And Danny's like, oh yeah, I think I can handle like one troll, I guess. And then we now get another scene. There are like 3 or 4 scenes that are kind of shot full, like front from the front, facing Rowan and Danni as they walk together, and just kind of like to demonstrate the growth of their relationship. The first one's a lot of reverse shot, and then eventually gets to the point where it's just kind of like continuous shots of the two of them together, which I liked. And it was at this part that Rowan says that her sister was one of the victims of the shooting, and also mentions that she considers Avril Lavigne oldies music, which I took personally, as did Danni. And Danny's starting to build a relationship with someone. She's starting to feel a little bit guilty, a little bit bad about this. It'll come back later. We get more French whispering counting down. We found out that Danny's article is one of the most successful in the history of her work, so she gets her own office, all that stuff. I gotta say, they're having like a party for her, and like all of her coworkers are coming and talking to her, and this character Kelvin, who I liked, he reminds me of Julie, our friend Julie, because he says that her article gave him the courage to tell his Discord server about his trypophobia. And I was like, I know someone like that.
Oh god!
But Julie
that
is
little,
cooler
like,
than
his little bit
him.
about that was so funny. Like the way he was saying it, and
like,
the cracker
the
was holding it up. It was like, "This, I'm terrified of this."
But you gave me the courage to eat it.
Yeah.
I mean, one thing I like about the dialogue in this movie is that it does use a lot of like buzzwords and modern phrases, but it uses them well, and the only times that it feels out of place, it's intentional, because usually it's Danny misusing a phrase or Colin. Really, it's only those two who like fuck up that kind of stuff. I feel like everybody else has a very natural way of approaching slang and all that modern speak. Colin then invites Danny to an influencer party. And Harper then starts, I know, we'll get to it, Avery. We'll get to it. Harper starts poking holes in Danny's story here, and is like, what cathedral did you tour? And she's like, Notre Dame. And I immediately was like, that's closed. It's been closed for years, and all that stuff. But Danny just kind of leaves.
She could have toured around it.
Yeah.
No, I know.
So then we see Danni at this influencer party, and she's wearing, again, I like the use of fashion and costumes in this movie to kind of demonstrate how out of place she is. She's wearing a really tight dress with like a, I don't know, you would call it like a cutout section for cleavage. And basically the whole time she's wearing this dress, she's either pulling it down or has her hands over her chest because like she's just not comfortable in it, not comfortable in her own skin, not comfortable in this world because she hasn't really earned her place there.
The whole bit with the bike shorts under her outfit and like her having to constantly adjust it or whatever, I was like, this is me. This is me when I go out. Like, I'm like, I look so good. And then the whole night I'm like, I can't sit because it hurts and I don't want to stand this way because this is like, this is falling down or whatever. I'm like, this is me.
And it sucks because this is probably... if you ignore what she did, this little stretch here is when Danny's, like, at her most likable, because, later we'll see when she does go to meet Rowan in this outfit, and she's, like, they're goofing around, and she, like, pulls the bike shorts down, and, like, they're having a good time. And it is tragic. It made me feel, again, another comparison, made me feel worse than anything in Dear Evan Hansen did, except for that face he made. That was truly
horrific.
Something else. And the almost kiss jump scare.
Yeah, Jesus Christ. This like segment from the party to the kickball game also had some good music in it, so I was bopping because they were playing.
Yeah, this whole movie had good music.
Yeah, they were playing "Hot Girl Summer" by Black Bear, which was like my summer song, like whenever it came out. And then they were playing "Rico Nasty" during the kickball game, and I was like, "Let's go!" It was so good.
I can't believe that I saw Black Bear before. Like I even knew really who he was.
I'm jealous.
And how big
I missed him.
He
came to my college, and then I missed him because I was visiting my friend at her college, and I was upset, like genuinely upset.
He was just he only did like 4 or 5 songs when I saw Fall Out Boy.
I like them all.
I chime in.
Piper did that with Doja Cat in like 2016 or 2015. Saw her.
Yeah.
I would like to point out that was a joke, just in case we get our first comment, and it's like, that's not Fall Out Boy, idiot.
Okay.
Oh, it's Imagine Dragons, right? Yeah. I love going to their concerts. I go like every time I can.
Yeah.
Did you know that that album, their first album with Radioactive and stuff, and Believer, was their concept album to do the Spider-Man musical? They were initially contracted to do the Spider-Man musical, so they wrote a bunch of songs for it, and then it switched to Bono and The Edge, so they just released it as their own. So like Radioactive would have been like his I'm turning into a Spider-Man song, and Believer was, I think, like, yeah, whatever. Too much time spent on Imagine Dragons. Back to the movie. So we're at the influencer party, and, she does a bunch of photo ops, and, wears a beret and is hanging out with Colin. And Colin starts to kind of be a human here and is, like, asking her actually about her experience. And he's like, I don't think I would ever be okay, like, if I went through what you did. But then immediately, like, starts to turn that into a way to flirt with her. But this is when I noted about how, like, Colin also got his fame by lying about kind of his identity and stealing other people's tragedies for his personality. Which I think is good, because also, he's a weed influencer when, like, weed culture and then a lot of, like, that as a white person
in New York,
a state where it's legal. It's legal in New York, right?
Yeah, but...
Yeah, precisely. But then there are, like, millions upon millions of people of color, black people, in jail for decades for, like, an ounce of marijuana on them.
Yeah.
I just felt that he was an interesting character to include in this movie as just another example of exactly what Danny is. And they do a story on his Instagram screaming "fuck terrorists," and then probably one of the funniest scenes in the movie has sex with Colin in the bathroom.
That part,
and he's like,
Piper was sleeping next to me, so I was trying not to laugh so hard. Oh god,
it was really good. Jess had told me before the movie that she knew of one scene in the movie, and it was that one because she saw a TikTok about it. And he's like, moaning and groaning and like choking her, but like not really effectively, and like pulling her hair, and keeps like being like, "Who's my damaged little girl?"
Yeah,
like,
that was like
the
weirdest part, because it was already like, you know, cringe, whatever. As he's like there, like, because at the beginning he's like on her back and is trying to like undo her dress, and it's like, what the fuck are these? And she's like, they're bike shorts, and like that was already cringe. And then he's like moaning, and it's weird, and then he starts being like, "Who's my damaged little bitch?" Like whatever. It's like, oh my god.
Yeah, and he's like, "You're so helpless."
Yeah, and he's like, "You need me. Tell me you need me. Like, I'll save you.
I'll protect you."
Like, oh my god. Like, it was so out of fucking nowhere.
And then it's over in like 15 seconds.
Yeah.
And he comes in her, so she has to get Plan B.
She's like, "Did you just come in me?"
Yeah. Ugh.
And Colin completely ditches her. And so she meets up with the group for kickball that night in her dress and has fun with them. This is when they're playing the music that Jess liked. I forgot the artist.
It's Rico Nasty.
Rico Nasty. I don't know why I was singing Millie Rock. That's not right.
That's
but,
wow.
Millie Rico. Nasty.
Millie Rico. Yeah. Rowan says that Danny reminds her of Cora, her sister, and Danny suggests that they do poetry together. And this is probably the line that made me cringe the most, because she's like, "Yeah, we'll like change the world like Katniss and Rue."
Yeah.
And I'm like, ooh. Because it's like, yeah, she sees her as Rue. She does look like Rue does in the movie. But Rue dies in the first movie, and
Oh my god, yeah, I forgot.
yeah, and then like always kind of sticks with Katniss as like her trauma and stuff like that. I was like, yeah, okay. So it's basically, you know, just another allusion.
I think it was
to the
just
fact
like
that,
any combo of a person of color and an
yeah,
older
like
white
a
person.
sidekick.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like-
exactly. But to me, it was also like, you know, these are characters where Katniss moves on because Rue dies, because, you know, otherwise one of them has to win the Hunger Games in some way. And then Danny is walking home alone and gives the homeless woman from earlier her gift bag. And she's like, "What the fuck am I supposed to do with it?" And then it gets cut off with the next title card. We're in part 7. I'm a good person now. Danny is on a talk show. And this was a funny little segment because it was like one of those like modern talk shows that's probably only on like Instagram Reels or TikTok, or one of the weird Snapchat stories that nobody watches. And the host is like talking about bombs, because like they talk about like blowing up on
Yeah, they were
Instagram
like, speaking
and
of
stuff.
blowing up. Like,
Yeah.
it's like, oh my god.
And Danny is asked to punch up Harper's article for her that she wrote about Ruth Bader Ginsburg, which I felt was also an interesting point to include, which we won't get into now.
I dissent.
But again, it's just like, yeah,
Girl
the
boss.
notorious RBG. What a girl boss. What a, yeah. Especially for like the kind of site that they work for. It's like
Yeah.
pitch perfect.
Yeah.
Along with Harper's 2012 Tumblr style.
Yeah, there was a lot.
Definitely Harper's role model. Like, one of hers, for sure. Like an idol. It just felt like that.
And we're now like seeing that Danny is co-opting Rowan's style, because she's at work. She's wearing kind of more like skater, loose-fitting, like a t-shirt with a button-up over it, which is exactly what Rowan wears. And Rowan just kind of wears that because it's comfortable and what she likes. She's not really trying to put on airs, but Danny's now doing it to kind of like get in with that look. And Danny then leaves to join Rowan at a rally and is cold shouldering Connor. And
You
this
mean
is
Colin?
where sorry, Colin. Yeah, Colin. And he's like, she leaves and he's like, okay, damn, she got a backside on
Yeah.
first though.
Yeah.
Got the thickie.
The
and
fatty.
this is what he gets called, the thickie, the fatty. And then Harper's like, "You're from Maine," and we get this great scene where he drops his voice and like whines to her, and then immediately like goes back into it. And then Harper, we see, goes into Danny's office and starts snooping on her laptop.
Why would you leave your laptop there?
I didn't get that, especially with Evan. Why didn't she delete all of that as soon as this shit hit the fan? Again, stupid character. She didn't think she was going to get caught. She made just one fake website for this fake retreat. Yeah. Danny and Rowan are on their way to the rally. It's at this point we find out that the person who's been running the group is also Rowan's mom, and therefore lost her daughter in the shooting. And Rowan's really nervous because she gets bad stage fright, but also, she's nervous about, someone attacking her on stage. And so Danny plays Complicated by Avril Lavigne to calm Rowan down, and they're, like, jamming on the way.
The oldies.
Yeah, the oldies. And so now we're at the We've Had Enough rally. Danny talks about Cora in her speech, when earlier in the movie Rowan said she specifically does not bring up her sister because it's too hard for her to deal with in front of other people, and she doesn't want to make it just about her. She wants to make it about kind of every victim of gun violence, and just is completely stealing Rowan's thunder and her spotlight at this point. Some alt-right dudes throw firecrackers on the stage, and Rowan has a panic attack. We now hear the countdown. It's at D. So we're getting close to whatever it is that's going to happen. Now online, people are like attacking Rowan, saying that she's a crisis actor, saying she faked it. All real shit that happened to the kids at Stoneman Douglas, and also like every other shooting. Alex Jones is literally on trial right now for doing that. Did you hear about that? I mean, oh my god.
Sandy Hook.
Yeah, for Sandy Hook, when he said that it was faked. And his defense team completely fucked up and sent a full clone of his phone for the last 2 years to the prosecution by accident. Yeah. So they have like every single thing he's ever texted or emailed or whatever in the last 2 years, which is so funny to me. Yeah. Wow. I hope that motherfucker rots in prison. Yep. And so Danny goes in to comfort Rowan and parrots back a line, but says it wrong. Earlier in the movie, Rowan said the internet loves to make victims into villains, and Danny says the internet loves to make villains into victims, which is precisely her situation. We are now at Danny leaves Rowan at the hospital, is kind of panicking. Rowan's mom thanks Danny, and Danny can't really let herself again be real or vulnerable. She's like, I have to go feed my guinea pig. It reminded me of American Psycho whenever he uses the I have to return some videotapes or some dry cleaning excuse to leave. And we now get a full French countdown, and Danny has a vision of the attacks again, and Rowan is there this time and sees herself as the bomber. So, yeah, again, this movie wears its themes and symbols and everything on its sleeve. It's not super deep, but there is a lot to get into, which is kind of fun. And, it's kind of like, again, a Jordan Peele movie where he doesn't hide what he wants to talk about. He does that on purpose. His movies are still, I think, better than this. All three of his movies are better than this, but his is another example of, movies that just are easy to chomp into and really discuss because they don't hide their themes under a ton of symbols and misdirects and stuff, which I appreciate. See Nope, because Nope also really does deal with a lot of themes similar to this about spectacle and attention and fame and the price of fame and all that stuff, and what people will do to be famous. So see Nope if you haven't already. Avery, go see it. I wanted to talk more about that, but I can't because I'll spoil it.
Fuck you, I'm poor.
It's okay. It's okay. I gotta get talking about movie tickets and spending. I just gotta nut up and get one of the A-list things where you can just see as many movies as you want for $20 a month.
Nut up, Dan.
Already. You don't already.
Yeah.
I
know, me too.
So
you're the target audience for that. So.
Precisely. I mean, if you think about it, one IMAX ticket is $25. So it's the price of that, except you can go as much as you want. I would just kill time any time that I was I'd be yeah, I'll go see Minions: Rise of Gru.
Hell yeah.
I'll go see it.
Dress up
the
with
Legend
the boys.
of Hank. And all that stuff. I'll see Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris. Whatever.
There's a lot of Paris, France themed movies, shows, media.
And even this movie sort of makes fun of Emily in Paris or Emily in Paris.
Exactly.
In with the beret and how ridiculous she is, which I also appreciate a lot. So Harper is now at Danny's apartment, wakes her up. She's figured everything out. Harper is a hero. # Team Harper. That was one of my notes for
Harper
here.
Does,
she is.
I think the whoever plays Harper did a good job on the like reveal speech. Like it seemed very much like a real thing. It's like, I'll give you the saving grace, but I never liked you, so like you better do it or I'm going to. I really
thought it was the actress from The Prom on Broadway.
Caitlin Kinnan?
Yeah, I thought it was her for a sec, but it wasn't. I looked it up. They have similar like facial structures. So
she has the same voice teacher as I do. Humble brag. I was there first though. So
shit.
Fuck off, okay. Caitlin. I'm just
kidding. Once again, great set design here because Danny, as Jess said, Harper kind of gives Danny this ultimatum. Either Danny can come clean or Harper will write an article exposing her. And Harper's like, either way, you owe Rowan an apology. Spoiler alert, she does not apologize. Danny's freaking out in her shitty, unkempt apartment, and she decides to write an article with a ton of excuses explaining herself. She was like, I was under the influence of marijuana, but that's not an excuse. But I'm also dealing with depression.
Oh my
that's
God.
not an excuse.
It's
like,
so
all these
reminiscent
things.
of all the people who have had to have accountability, like all celebrities.
I really wanted
and it's never an apology.
Yeah, I really wanted a shot of it being a Notes app apology, but they just had her voiceover. But
we do get a Notes app apology later, movie, which I appreciate.
But I wanted it to then be like a sliding of her just posting that on Twitter or something. She just posts it straight on her on the website for which I think
depravity.
Is fitting.
And honestly, I'm like, how does she have clearance to do that? How can she just post anything? That's an oversight. I feel like only the editor should be able to do that. But I guess she got promoted and whatnot. And she's like, I will do better. I wrote here, I wish she cried in a forest as well. But we can't get everything.
Oh my God.
And we get more of this like great, I think the music is great in this movie,
Totally.
especially like the voice, the choir. We now get like a full chorus here in the background.
I really liked that
really
too. That was in my notes. I just like anything
creepy,
with a good choir.
honestly.
Like all of my like favorite songs from movies or TV shows, they all have
Candyman.
choirs. Candyman, Devilman Crybaby, like anything with a choir hits. Like
really solid. And she basically uses every line from like if you go watch Jack's Films video where he apologizes preemptively for something that he would have done wrong or whatever, it's basically like all those beats of Logan Paul's apology videos, all these terrible apology videos we've seen over the years. Shane Dawson,
James Charles,
James
5
Charles.
of them.
Yeah, basically everybody who's done an apology video except for Jenna Marbles, who actually did a good one. But here's she's anticipating forgiveness eventually, and she does not tell Rowan ahead of posting the article. So Rowan shows up at Danny's work after finding out and screams at her. We don't hear their confrontation, which I really like. It just happens behind closed glass doors. Danny gets fired and kicked out of the office and runs into Colin on the way out. And he's like, yo, what did I miss? Which I really liked.
I liked that scene a lot.
Especially because that means he's chronically late to work
to school. I really like that scene a lot, especially because like you can kind of tell what they're saying, like you can hear them a little bit. It's pretty muffled, but then I liked that like the only full sentence you hear is Danny screaming like, because you're my best friend or whatever, like as the boss opens the door to then close it, and you're just like, damn, sucks to be you then. That really sucks, huh?
Mia Isaac, I have to say, played Rowan. I really liked her. This is like kind of her first big thing, and I really hope we see more of her in other stuff because I really liked her.
Yeah, I liked her too.
Maybe if they ever do Euphoria, The Next Generation, she can be in that.
Please no, don't let Sam Levinson get a hold of younger people.
If Sam Levinson fucking directed this movie. Like that's why I'm saying I'm glad Quinn Shepard.
We would see some boobies. We would see Zoe's boobies.
And also he would try to make us sympathize too much with Danny. By the way, Quinn Shepard, who wrote and directed this, was in the movie Unaccompanied Minors as a child. She was a child actor.
And
I just had to
an
say
unaccompanied minor.
Yes.
So crazy.
She's the, like, tomboy in that movie, in the group of unaccompanied minors. So, just had to be said. Just had to say it. We're now at part 8, my favorite chapter. I don't get a redemption arc.
Yes.
That made me laugh out
so
loud.
good. That
Just
reminded me
too.
of Dear Evan
We don't liked it
Hansen.
yet.
Like, thank God.
Where he does.
Yeah, that's what, because I was like, thank God she doesn't.
This movie, the whole time, I was like, I really wanted to stick the landing, because if it tries to excuse her or implies that she's living a better life after this, then it's a failure. So we're now back to where the movie opened. She's looking at the memes, watching videos, people saying they want her to die, that they want to kill her. She gets doxxed and assaulted in public. So she moves back in with her parents. She deactivates all of her social media accounts. And now, a month later, she's at an online shaming support group. And she is actually opening up about herself for the first time in the movie, talking about how she says, I don't think I like myself very much, and talks about how her life before being famous was actually really easy. As lonely as it was an easier life to live. And actually, Quinn Shepard is in the support group as herself. Like, she's a character named Quinn, which I thought was funny. I don't know if she was the one running the support group or what, but I like that she was included in there. And one of the other support group members says, have you tried making amends? So we now go to part 9, the finale. Danni is at Rowan's Act Up performance, which is something that she was talking about and being nervous about.
Y'all make me about to act up. I'm about to
and this is where we see her notes app apology that she's written out to say to Rowan. Rowan's performance changed from her initial planned thing and is now about/against Danni and what she did. She calls out Danni for stealing from her, from not only her experiences, but her advice, and her loss and her tragedy. And it ends with, one day I will forgive you, but I will never be okay. We will never be okay. The audience applauds Rowan, as does Danni. You know, Rowan's welcomed into her parents' arms, and then Danni leaves without talking to her, and the movie ends, and that's it. That's the end of the movie. And I thought that was a good ending. I would have been really pissed if Rowan forgave her over the course of the movie. I like that she's like, we may get to the point where I forgive you, but like this,
but we're not friends.
It's never going to happen.
Yeah, you just like re-traumatized her.
Yeah.
Precisely. Yeah. So that is not okay. It's a quick, well-paced movie. You know, it's only about an hour 35, an hour 40. Good pace. What'd you guys think of it? Now that we're kind of done the recap and we can speak freely. How we usually wrap up here is we give a movie a score out of 10, say whether or not we liked it, give our favorite character, and our favorite scene. So I went first last time, so one of you guys
Avery, you
take
go first.
it.
You haven't been on in a while.
Yeah. Welcome back.
Thanks.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
I would give it a 7 out of 10. I really enjoyed it. But there were some times where I had to look away because I was genuinely uncomfortable.
Yeah.
One of my favorite parts, I think, was when, because it's so true, and I do it too, of like the celebrities being like, I am not okay, and then immediately calling her out and canceling her after the fact. And it's like everyone will just jump on anything, like without fact checking.
Cancel culture much?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was like really cool. And my favorite character was Colin. Hands down. Love that guy.
Bro, same.
He was
Dude, same.
so stupid. And I want to be him for Halloween. I'm going to be him for Halloween. Easiest costume.
Yeah, you gotta make a
Funniest.
scorpion joint.
Yeah.
With the blowtorch.
Okay.
You can use herbal. What they do in
Oregano.
movies. Yeah.
Yeah.
For
Yeah,
fake
maybe.
Cigarettes.
Or some real... Yeah.
Or you
Go
could just
tape
probably
them into a
stuff it with
scorpion.
like paper or something. I
Yeah.
don't know. It'd be funny.
Yeah.
Um,
I was just thinking about
Yeah.
the sweatpant, the one leg up, like with the long
Yeah.
socks. That would be
you gotta
comfortable.
get a vape as well, and you gotta like You got to master his weird moans as well.
You got to draw on the tattoos.
I don't know for who. Yeah, I want to draw tattoos
with some
on.
eyeliner too. The fucking eye on the back of his neck, like whatever
so
the fuck
good.
that was.
So good.
I don't want to judge anyone for their tattoos, but I'm judging him a little bit for that one.
Honestly, you know how like
his third eye, but he put it in wrong.
Yeah, precisely. You know how they made a sequel to Bruce Almighty called Evan Almighty, which was just about another character from the first movie? They should do that for him. They should do a sequel to Not Okay, where it's about Colin maybe coming to terms with, you know, what he's done.
Or it's just like fucking Project X, and it's just like him raging for like an hour and a half.
Yes.
Yeah, because I mean, this movie was so
Tripping
marketed
out.
on him being in it and having like the short blonde hair and stuff, but I feel like he wasn't in it as much as I would have wanted. But also I feel like too much of that character, or if we had too much of him like humanized and breaking character, it would have kind of maybe broken some of the comedy around him. So I understand he was utilized well. And Avery, what was your favorite scene?
Probably the sex scene. That shit was fucked. Oh my god. That was hilarious though. I was trying so hard not to laugh. I was so uncomfortable, but I was like, oh my god. So I was like, people are actually like this.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was probably one of the best sex scenes I've seen in movies, because there's that argument that people make that every sex scene in movies is unnecessary. It never furthers a plot. You can always just insinuate or say that characters had sex. So I liked that it was just like pathetic and realistic and all that, and it was not rose-colored glasses, and she immediately hated it and like was like regretting everything that she'd done to get to that point. It was her second lowest point in the movie. Jess, what about you?
So I would also give it a 7 out of 10. I'm gonna take off a 0.5 in theory though, because the cringe got me so hard at so many points, but it is a 7.5 out of 10, but in my heart it's a 6.5 just because I can't handle it. But I did think it was like pretty relevant in terms of everything that it was talking about, obviously, and the comedy was just so good. And like we said, like the music was really good. I liked the set design and the outfits, just making it feel like it was now instead of like, because obviously you can't foresee like fashion or trends or whatever that's going to be relevant. So like when they did use like Dan mentioned it throughout the whole thing, but like every time she would speak it felt outdated, but then like when everybody else it would like felt like just how you talk to people today type thing. So
she was very performative.
Exactly. So I liked that a lot. So, and also like going into this movie knowing absolutely nothing, I was like pleasantly surprised. I was like, this actually made me laugh at parts, like even the cringe parts I still enjoyed. Like it was a good time. But like had we not done it for the podcast, I probably never would have watched it. So I'm kind of glad that we did it, because like
same.
it was you know pleasant surprise.
I thought she was actually gonna be in Paris.
So that's what I thought. I was like, oh, she's gonna. I honestly like right when she starts lying, I was like, is this whole thing gonna take place from her room, and like all of the lies are then her just photoshopping things, and then it's like one of those like whatever. But I thought it was cool how like she's still she like had to come back and like whatever. So I thought that was cool.
So you thought it was gonna be like a bottle
kind
movie,
of, but like I literally didn't know, so I was like, oh, that would be
interesting.
I was like, oh, that would be interesting if like this is how they ended up doing the movie. But then I was like, okay, it's gonna be worse than that, obviously.
I thought she was maybe going to have to continually keep photoshopping stuff. Like be like, oh, and I was here and here, and like,
that was the other funny thing too, is like her Photoshop skills like weren't that great, and I know that they did it for the point of the movie, but I was like, if I saw somebody like post that and be like, I'm in Paris, I'd be like, the lighting on your hair is completely different than the background, like come on. So that part was even funny too, because it was like, oh, this is like her job, but she's like still not even that good at it.
But it's also just like points out like no one's gonna fact check that website that she made, like no one even looked. Everyone's
so
quick
at the
to
weather.
Just jump.
Exactly.
She put like a perfect sunny day and all that, but apparently it was raining beforehand. That was one of Harper's points.
But I like that.
Go on.
And then character, Rowan is the obvious answer. She's like the most best person out of like anyone in the movie. But I also, like, come on, I loved Colin.
Yeah.
Like,
I love Rowan, too. I don't want to look like a bad person.
No. But I, like, every time he was on screen, he made me laugh. Also, just because I'm, like, fully in love with Dylan O'Brien. But the scene where he's, like, actually acting, I mean, again, bare minimum, but, like, kind of acting as a person, like, there's, like, a split second where they're just kind of, like, looking at each other and, like, flirting, and it, like, got me giggling, and then it was immediately followed up by the fucking sex scene, and I was like, I can't say that he like, you know, got me giggling in this movie, but he did, and then it was followed up by just one of the worst things I've ever seen with my eyes. So that was very funny. And then favorite scene, I mean, like, the entire end is good because I liked the way that they wrapped it all up. But I just really liked the way that the fighting scene played out, that you didn't hear, like, their friendship falling apart and you only heard, like, a sentence or two, or, like, it was muffled. I just liked how that was shot, because they could have just done, like, a full blowout and have them screaming at each other or whatever, and instead it was this, like, kind of fast, honestly, like, them, like, melting down and then the boss just being like, okay, get out. Like, so I kind of liked the way that happened, because she was obviously trying to avoid that by not addressing her, like, in her, you know, reveal blog. So I thought that was like I don't know, I thought it was like cool, well shot. I thought it was neat.
A good choice.
Yeah, like a good choice for that, because it's obviously what she's, like, avoiding after she makes
the obvious
her friend, you know.
Choice is to have an argument, like the argument that you hear and everything.
Yeah.
Or to have a tight zoom on her face.
Yeah,
and she goes,
yeah.
I never meant to make it such a mess.
Yeah, exactly. So
I never thought that it would go this far.
Okay.
Or the book smart fight where everyone's watching them get into it.
That's what it reminded me of, where the audio drops out and it's just them screaming at each other. Because I think you can get caught up in the words, and I like that you just kind of see the animosity that's present in their body language. Totally. Or at least in Rowan's, compared to Danni shrinking and stuff. I think that's a testament to their acting ability.
Yeah, so. Totally.
Yeah, I would give it probably like a 6 out of 5 as
6
well.
6 out of 5?
Sorry, 6. Yeah, 6 out of 5. 12 out of 10.
Favorite movie ever.
Sorry, 6 out of 10. Sorry, 6.5 out of 10. I agree with a lot of your points. I think it's technically an extremely well-made movie. I liked a lot of the camera work, direction, color palette. I like the editing colors, and the way they incorporated title cards and, like, sometimes weird split frames and whatnot here and there, and all of the social media aspects, you know, here and there. And so I've already said that, you know, it doesn't really do anything super new in terms of messages. Like, we didn't learn anything from this. It was just, I
Dear
think,
Evan Hansen did it first.
Yeah, we have to say that too.
Yeah.
I think this was a good example of those, like, that kind of story about, like, you know, hubris and how bad social media is and about fame and all that. I mean, it sucks that I see it right after Nope, which is, like, a perfect movie about exactly that kind of messages as well.
But I've never seen a movie about a white woman doing this, so...
I guess so. I can't...
It's the first of its kind. No, I'm just saying,
yeah.
like, it's like a fresh... Like, if it was a guy, I'd be like, okay, this is exactly...
Yeah, I think that it's important that it is a white woman. I know that Zoey Deutch was a producer on the movie as well. I think it's important that it was a white woman and that Rowan was a person of color as well.
Yeah.
I think that's really important. So I'll say, yeah, my favorite character... I mean, I have to split it between, like, the three main ones. I think that they're well-written and have... you know, Rowan obviously is the most likable character in the movie for sure, but then I like the way that Danni and Colin are written as both kinds of examples of what I've said already, people who, you know, have stolen someone else's vibes or tragedies to make into their personality and get famous off of it. And I think Danni is a well-written main character with, you know, some depth to her, and, you know, you feel sorry for her in just how pathetic she is, but you don't feel empathy or compassion for her in that sense. You know, outside of it, mostly just because, like, wow, that would suck to not have any friends and have no one like you.
Yeah, I mean, it's also, the minute, like, you start
she
to
doesn't
feel
give
bad.
Reasons for people to like her is the thing. Like, she is unpleasant, she's entitled, she tokenizes other people around her, like with the yes queen slay thing and all that. Like, she treats herself as the main character and all that. This is, like, the dangers of that kind of personality and narcissism.
And when you start to feel bad for her, something else happens where you're like, oh my god, she's actually
fucking
so
sucks.
shitty.
Yeah.
Like there's never, it doesn't build up. You're always reminded.
Yeah, I did think it was interesting too, because even at the end, like, you know, Rowan's poem, like, to her obviously tells her, like, just don't even try to apologize, like, this isn't the time. But right before, I think it's like during the performance before Rowan, like, she takes out her phone, and that's when you see, like, the notes app. But, like, you're in a dark, like, audience. Like, don't take out your phone. Like, be aware of the people around you. Again, so even that, it's like, you know, she's still not understanding.
I thought she was gonna get up.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
And do this whole public apology. I was so scared.
Same.
Apparently there was a different ending to the movie. I saw a TikTok that said that, like, someone who was, sorry, I'm typing, who was at, like, a test screening. I didn't watch it because I was like, well, I don't want to even know. This was before I watched the movie, and I forgot to save it. But there is an alternate ending, and I wonder what it's about. Instead of telling Rowan the truth, Danni leeches off her trauma, turning it into her own almost simultaneously. Sorry, I thought this was about the ending of the movie. I fucking hate modern movie journalism because 3/4 of the article end up being just random facts about the movie instead of what you're actually trying to read.
Yeah. It's like looking up a recipe. Like, I don't need to know your family life, your backstory.
Exactly.
Like, I just want to know what goes into the fucking muffins. Like, I don't...
How many lemons do I need, please?
Yes.
So, the director said, we shot 2 alternate endings, neither of which are in the film. I will say they were endings that were not happy, that actually just saw Danni face much more brutal consequences for her actions, and while on paper it felt like those endings would provoke the audience to question, what do we do with somebody like Danni as a society? In execution, in the cut of the film, they felt as if the film was saying there can be no hope or redemption if you've made mistakes in your life like this. So she didn't want to give her a redemption arc, but she didn't want to, like, kill her or have her, like, brutally attacked or something.
Yeah, because she still can. Hopefully she grows from it. You know, she went to the group to try to, like, own up. But it's still satisfying because she doesn't get, like, people are still going to hate her.
Yeah.
And I will say my favorite scene in the movie is the kind of that stretch I talked about, the influencer party and sex scene into the nice kickball bonding.
It's a good
stretch.
A good stretch. I like that one too.
Good 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I was fucking dying at that sex scene. It was so good.
So fun.
So funny. So housekeeping for the end of the episode. We are taking next week off. As of right now, I am going to be in the United Kingdom.
Going to England
for a week.
Yeah, mate.
Mate, going to England.
You want some tea?
When I get back.
Sorry.
Hello.
Sorry. I don't know who that was.
That's so weird.
Someone just came into my apartment.
Oh.
And when I get back, we will be doing an episode on High School Musical 2. With maybe some guest stars here and there. A lot of people I've spoken to in our friend group have expressed interest in being on the episode when I mentioned when I mentioned that we're doing High School Musical 2 and possibly drinking again during it, not getting gassed this time. I'm in a different apartment, so we won't get gassed.
What are you talking about?
There was
Dan left
when we
his
recorded our episode
stove on while we recorded.
Jesus.
Yeah, when we recorded High School Musical, so Jess went home. That was a traumatic night because not only were we both kind of drunk, I went and realized that the gas was on. You got in an Uber where your Uber driver just vented for the entire 40-minute drive.
This was the Uber where we got pulled over.
Oh yeah, your Uber got pulled over
God.
right
Like back
out the
tail
gate.
light was out, so it wasn't anything bad, but I was just like on the phone with Dan as he's telling me that he gassed us, and then I was like, hold on, I have to hang up. The cop, like a cop is at our window.
Bro.
It was ridiculous.
And so I opened all the windows
You
in the
didn't
apartment.
smell
It was
it?
like No, gas doesn't have a smell. That's why you need...
No, they put a smell in it so you can smell something.
It was like just like a little bit. Like it wasn't like he was just like, you know, burning or like, you know, had the gas on. It was like instead of being on off, it was like between off and like the first number. Yeah.
They have to put something so you can smell it. The only one that doesn't smell is carbon monoxide.
Yeah, that's exactly what it would be. Yeah. Because that's what's produced by a
stove. A stove?
Stovetop. Yeah, if it's not lit, that's carbon monoxide coming out of there. That's people die.
Well, when I don't light mine, when it's like doing the little quickie thing, it smells. So.
Well, whatever.
Anyway.
Anywho, we almost died, and then I was like,
Christ.
We didn't actually almost die. We were probably fine.
Like at the furry convention, so dramatic.
It was like also December, so it was freezing, and I had all the windows open, and so like Jess came back from babysitting, and was like, "What the fuck is going on?" And I was like, "I don't know if I'm poisoned from gas or if I'm just drunk." And then we went to a wedding the next day, and Jess got COVID, and we didn't have Christmas that year because of that.
Christmas was ruined!
So hopefully High School Musical 2 is a much better experience for everyone involved.
You know, my brother and cousin would watch High School Musical every day. High School Musical 2. I didn't know they smoked at the time that this was happening. I thought they just watched it. They knew every word.
Movie of choice.
Who doesn't?
Like every time they smoked.
So yeah, it's going to be another episode where it's one we've both watched, so it might be a little bit silly because we know what's coming and we can spoil shit and make jokes about what's going to happen and sing along.
Yeah. Anyways, let's wrap up this episode.
Okay, that's it. If you like this, please give us a follow and a review, a 5-star review, wherever you're listening, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or on the Podbean app or any other kind of podcast app. You can follow me on Instagram at theamazingspider_Dan. You can follow us everywhere at Instagram.com at Movie Night Mates on Instagram and YouTube, and on Twitter we are Movie Night Mates. You can follow Avery on Instagram at
@MissingGav
and Jess at
Jessica_.
Everywhere. So thank you so much for listening to this. We will see you in 2 weeks for High School Musical 2 to kick out summer with, cap off the summer with. I made the exact same mistake in Blade Runner. Whatever. All right. Goodbye.
Bye.